Today is continues our class Kosher Kitchen, and we continue with our Sefer Chofetz Chaim. Oh no, we did it last time, so I did not make my bookmark. So we continue with Sefer Shmiras Halashon, and topic Shechinah departs. The sin of Lashon Hara causes Shechinah, divine presence, to remove itself from our midst. As Medrash Dvarim Rabbah 5:10 states, Rav Mona said, whoever speaks Lashon Hara causes Shechinah to ascend from this world. As David said, my son is among lions. Leib is men who are aflame. People whose teeth spears and arrows, and whose tongue is sharp sword. Be exalted above the heavens, O God, above all of the earth, and your glory. It's Tehillim 57:5-6. Okay, so what does it mean? David's intent was, Master of the universe, why is your presence manifested in this world when such as sinners are present? Remove it from your to your heavenly abode. So that's very, very sad. Right? So even David was very zealous for Hashem's honor, and he said, Hashem, I'm very sorry, but that's what people do. They speak Lashon Hara, so maybe you should go up. Your Shechinah, take your Shechinah up. It's very embarrassing. I would say maybe example would be like we have some embarrassing episodes happening in our house, and there is a neighbor. He tried to come in and said, no, not that time. Go back. Please come another time. Regarding so it says regarding the gossiper. Regarding the gossiper, thus Hashem says, he and I cannot dwell together in this world. It says in Talmud Arichin 15b. So Hashem said, he and I cannot. Can you imagine how Hashem hates these people? And even after knowing that, some people say no, they would feel like insulted if I just turn out and leave. But when Shechinah leaves, right, you're not insulted. How about that? So think about Shechinah first. Furthermore, the second destruction occurred because of the gossipers who caused the sinas chinam, baseless hatred, to reign among the people. Yom 9b. Okay, so baseless hatred, of course, it's all revolved around speaking Lashon Hara, right? That's people usually start with speaking. Sometimes it turns into action, sometimes not, but still it hurts. One who causes strife among friends is despicable in the eyes of Hashem, and his sin is too great to bear, especially with friends. Okay, so he's sometimes people compete for attention. People compete for popularity, even among the friends. I mean, you've been friends for 20 years, so you want him to be more friendly with you than with other guy. It's like people behave like children. King Shlomo said, 6 things are hated by Hashem. The 7th is despised by him. So 6 things are hated by Hashem, and 7th is despised by him. Haughty eyes, a tongue of falsehood, hands which shed innocent blood, and the one who incites quarrels among the brothers. So that's the 7th one. Right? The one who incites quarrels among the brothers. It's Mishle 6:16 through 19. Okay. Our sages state that the 7th sin is worst of all. Okay. Meaning the one who incites the quarrels. So commentary. Sefer Torah explained that evil talk can ultimately lead to murder and the other heinous sins. Thus, it is potentially the worst sin of all. Very interesting. So, I mean, that's how it starts with quarrel among brothers, especially when the brothers, when it's among strangers. The way I understand, it's not that bad. So it's strange from somebody from the strange nation, this and that, like that's one thing. But when he's your brother is a Jew, or brother like literal from your family, that hurts the most. Who is very close to you. Okay, we stop here. 1 second. So we continue with actually chapter 2, and our big topic is the foods and utensils. How the foods and utensils becomes unkosher. Right? That's very, very interesting. Right? And we said there is 2 criteria. So it must be done through a medium. Right? Some medium. It must be some liquid, water or another liquid, or fatty medium. Okay, so basically from here we see if a dried food, they're not going to transmit the taste. And second, right, the foods must be induced to infuse and absorb the taste through the medium. Okay, so two conditions. Okay, so today we start with part number 1, and topic is how the taste is transmitted. A, liquids. The liquid is the most common medium through which the taste is transmitted. When food is cooked in liquid, the liquid is absorbed throughout the food, and transmits the taste into the food. Okay, so it goes through the liquid, I would say from the walls of the utensil into the liquid and into the food. Similarly, the liquid absorbs taste from the food, so right, from liquid to the food and from food into the liquid. Right. 1 second. Just 1 second. Similarly, the liquid absorbs the taste from the food and can transmit the taste to another food. Okay, meaning what? Through the liquid. Another food, cooking in the same liquid, or into the vessel in which they're being cooked. So, okay. So if you're going to cook some other foods just in a liquid, so you took the solids out. Let's say, what is salad? I would say salad would be piece of meat, right? You took the meat out, and you have this broth, and you cooked your pasta, whatever you cook. So it's going to be for sure a meat pasta, for sure. Is it meat in a pot? There is no meat. There is no meat whatsoever. But the water absorbs the taste of meat. That would be a good example. So first was liquids. Liquids is, everybody understand. It's very straightforward. Now we're talking about second thing. It's actually not second, but B, fatty foods. Okay, although fat, unlike liquids, does not saturate foods. Okay, it's easy absorbed into the foods. Very interesting. When hot, right? So fat is only when hot. When cold, it does not, right? And transmit the taste into the food. Thus, fatty foods serve as a conduit to the taste infusions, even without liquid. So if fat is not liquid, it is solid, but in this case, like it has this special characteristic that it would transmit the food, the taste to somewhere else. If dry hot meat comes in contact with a dry hot dairy, and either food is fatty, taste transmits through both foods, and basar b'chalav results, right? So one more time. So here's a good example. When the fatty foods, just one second, no. If dry hot meat, okay, comes into contact with a dry hot dairy, and either food is fatty, so they're hot, right? They're dry, but one of them is fatty, meaning maybe it's cheese. I would say like fatty cheese, right? The taste transmits throughout both foods, right? So it goes from one to another. Okay. Similarly, if hot par food comes into the contact with hot meat or dairy, and either food is fatty, the part of food becomes meat or dairy food. Okay, so what would be the example? Okay, he has practical application. Okay, so let's wait to practical application. So not both of them are necessarily fat, like have this fat. Liquid is straightforward, right? Liquid, it goes through and it penetrates and absorbs from the food that cooked into the liquid, and actually gives the taste to this food as well. So that's straightforward. But with these fatty foods, even if one of them is fatty, that's enough. So okay, it's enough to transmit food to both of them. Okay. Next one, C, lean foods. Dry lean foods permit only the minimal amount of transmittal, even when heated. However, since it is difficult to determine which food are considered fatty and which are lean, it is acceptable custom to treat most foods as fatty foods. So of course it's going to be some exception. By default, we treat, of course, since it could be biblical prohibition, right? Biblical violation of meat and milk together. So we're going by stricter rule, and we say that they all by default fatty. Okay. A Rav should be consulted whether the meat or dairy foods touch each other. Okay. Okay. So let's see practical applications, and we're going to discuss them. Number one. If cheese falls into the onto the piece of meat, or the reverse, or into the pot of food cooking in a pot. So when they are cold, there is no problem. Okay, we still don't do it, but cold, no problem. So the problem is with the hot, right? So one more time. If cheese falls into the piece of meat, onto the piece of meat, or the reverse, doesn't matter, or into the pot of food cooking in a pot, the start of the food would be dependent upon whether they are considered fatty or lean. Okay. Whether the food in a pot was submerged or even partially submerged in a liquid. Submerged or partially submerged in a liquid, okay. And whether the pot was stirred or covered after the cheese or meat fell into the pot. So meaning what? If stirred, okay, that's it, right? If it's not stirred, so maybe it's you can still like take it out, whatever, you can still see. And of course, when you cover the pot, of course you increase the heat level. Okay, so it's going to mix for sure. Continue. Similarly, if meat and dairy food, so it's a second example. Similarly, if meat and dairy foods touch each other or touch parent food, their status would depend on whether they are considered fatty or lean. One more time. Similarly, meat and dairy foods touch each other or touch parent food. So why do we care about parent food? So because this parent food would be meat or dairy, right? Even though there is not meat and no dairy, but because of this infusion of taste, we're going to treat them as meat or as dairy. So of course you can always separate. So if meat, for example, was touch only partial, you have pasta or something, right? So you say that this pasta touch for sure. So I'm going to move it aside. That's a meat pasta, meat in double quotes. But the rest, it could be still could be considered as part of, if it's possible to separate. Continue. Number 3. Example number 3. These halachas are complex. Therefore, whenever meat and dairy touch each other or touch parent food in any manner, a Rav must be consulted. One must inform Rav. So here's how to ask the correct question, right? One must inform the Rav of all the particular circumstances involved. there is the degree of heat, whether there was a liquid present. So was it basically heat, meaning above Yad Saledes Bo, when hands recoil, right? Was present, liquid was present. Whether any of other foods was fairy, right? So it could be completely dry. That's a different story. Whether there was a lid on a pot, and whether the pot was stirred. So all of these things. Of course, we try, and so we're going to the part number 2, like transmittal of the taste. But we have to be very, very careful. It's not so simple. Like then you have to kasher all of these utensils. By the way, I have many years ago I bought this pot, like a huge pot, to kasher utensils, and Baruch Hashem, it's such an easy mitzvah. Nobody else would want to buy it, like once in a lifetime. So everybody said, yeah, well, why would I buy it for one time? And guess what? You need it more than once. And I've been lending to people for many years now. So this pot is a mitzvah tank. So I just lent it to somebody today. Baruch Hashem. Very interesting. Okay. So we gotta be very careful, and it's proper not to cook like at the same time. Not for example, if you don't have small kids, like little kids, different. Okay, they like to eat daily food. That's understandable. But if you don't have little kids, so like eat daily in the morning, right? And the rest of the day eat not daily. That's it. Something like that. So you would never ever would mix two things. Okay, and try to, if it's possible, so it's properly like. May HaShem bless all of you, so you have enough room and you have enough money in the kitchen to have separate stoves, like the milks. That's what many people have, right? Milk in one corner. This is another corner. You have one refrigerator and another refrigerator. So there is no. I mean, of course, like if you want, you can mix up anything, right? But it would be very difficult to do that if you have like a big kitchen and one in the one corner, another in another corner. So it's hard. Okay. Continue. Part number 2: transmittal of the taste through heat. Okay. So now, like we're going into details. Okay. Even when medium, there is liquid, is present to permit infusion of the taste, the infusion cannot take place without conditions that can cause transmittal of the taste. Okay. First, the first most condition. That can cause the transmittal is heat. So even if you have liquid, but if it's, for example, cold liquid or colder liquid, is not going to transmit the taste. Of course, there is exception. There are many exceptions, but this is general rule. Okay. Heat has ability to cause taste to be transmitted from one matter into another, foods to food or food to utensil. Right, so that's a good question. When somebody asked me, they pour cold milk by mistake into the pot. It's like cold milk from store, right? They pour into this meat pot. So there is no problem, right? It was cold. Okay. So continue. A. How hot is hot? The minimum degree of heat required to cause transmittal of the taste determined by Talmud Yad Saledes Bo, right? That's what we always say. Yad Saledes Bo, when your hand recoils. So a degree of heat from which the hand recoils. Okay. For the fear of the being burned. So of course it's reflective. It's not like you have a fear that okay, it's reflective, but that's what it is. Okay, so let's see one commentary. Rashi on page 40b does not say what. Okay, that doesn't matter. Continue. Rashi on 40b. Other definitions cited by Paskim include: A. Heat sufficient to cause immediate recoil, even though it would not immediately scald the skin. So here's like a little lower temperature, as we understand. So technically, you can hold the hand but you prefer to recoil. Okay. And B, the degree of heat that would scald the hand after sustained contact. So it's as you said, it's like much higher degree of heat. And C, a degree of heat that would scald the sensitive abdominal skin of a day-old child. That's the most the most strict degree, which is the baby's skin 1 day old is very, very, very sensitive. You understand? So of course we're trying to go in stricter opinion, but we'll see. We'll see what Halachah. Halachah is not like the third case. Okay. There are difference of the opinions among the contemporary authorities. Okay. As to exact degree defined by Yatzel Edesbo. So even though, I don't want to confuse anybody. So even though we say there are different opinions, at the end of the day we go by one opinion. If possible we go by two. If it's but here, if possible we go by stricter opinion. But after the fact, if needed, you can rely on lenient opinion. That's why you ask Rabbi, and he has to evaluate all of the details. So he's not going to give you all of the details because it's a good chance he's going to confuse you more. Right? Okay. Any food cooked cooler than 110 Fahrenheit, which is 43 degrees of Celsius, okay, is certainly not Yatzel Edesbo. So 110, it's very cold. I mean, I don't know, not very cold, but it's cold. It's not hot. So below this is not Yatzel Edesbo. Is not Yatzel Edesbo. Any food that is 160 degrees Fahrenheit, it's 71 Celsius, or above, is certainly considered Yatzel Edesbo. Okay, so we have 110 and 160, which is, of course, it's a big difference. Okay, so let's see if there is one commentary. Igras Moshe, or Chaim 474. So when he described Bishul, okay, that's his opinion. 110. Okay, got it. In the opinion of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Zatzal, Minchas Shlomo, any heat that is less than 113 Fahrenheit, 45 degrees Celsius, is not considered Yatzel Edesbo. So it's not a big difference of the opinion. Here they have 110 and 113, so it's plus or minus. Okay, so that's, I mean, we're very close. So below 110, for sure, it's not Yatzel Edesbo. For sure not, right? But above 160, for sure, it is Yatzel Edesbo. Okay. So, and between them is maybe. Okay, so basically what do we do with maybe? That's the thing. Continue. Section B, different levels of heat. Okay, before we continue, any questions on what we said so far? Okay, so let's continue. So different levels of heat. So we have Kli Rishon and Kli Sheini. So Kli is a vessel. So Kli Rishon is the first vessel, right? And Kli Sheini is the second vessel. So first vessel in what we cooked, and second vessel in what we transfer the food. Okay. I think he's going to explain, but just in case. Although the heat brings about the transmittal taste, not every situation of heat, even when Yatzel Edesbo, causes the taste to be transmitted. So it's a very interesting statement, right? Just because it is this temperature, Yatzel Edesbo, does not mean that taste is going to transmit it. Meaning what? If it has, they still have potency to cook. What does it mean? Let's see. There's a difference between the foods in Kli Rishon, the original cooking pot, and foods the Kli Sheini, the utensil into which the food was transmitted from Kli Rishon. Okay, so as we said, so you have now I'm going to simplify, right? So you have a soup, right? So you have this meat soup, right? In Kli Rishon meaning in the original pot that it was cooked, that was on a heat. Now you removed from the heat, and now you took what is it called? Like ladle, right? Ladle to pour the soup into your plate. So let's say forget about ladle, it's secondary, tertiary. Let's say your plate, it's already like a secondary. This Sheini, right? Sheini. So if for sure in a first utensil, if some like piece of cheese, right, fell into that pot and it's yatzaladas bo, it's going to cook for sure. So in a second utensil, not maybe not. So why maybe not? Because the temperature is going to drop like very fast. Okay. In opinion of the most poskim, the heat of Kli Sheini, even if yatzaladas bo, cannot cause the discharge or absorption of taste. Okay. So most poskim say that in a second in this plate, so not in a pot, in a plate, right, in a bowl of soup. So it's not so maybe the taste is not going to be absorbed. So one more time. In opinion of the most poskim, the heat of the Kli Sheini, right, I mean in your bowl of soup, even if yatzaladas bo cannot cause the discharge or absorption of the taste. Okay, so technically, in simple words, that it's not going to cook in your bowl, right? Okay, according to majority of the opinion. In their opinion, it is if kosher food falls into non-kosher hot liquid. If kosher food falls into non-kosher hot liquid, there is a Kli Sheini. The food can be washed and remain kosher. Okay, so for example, I don't know how it happened, but let's say you have somebody, I don't know, you eating in your office in the cafeteria, right? And somebody is eating soup next to you, not kosher food, and you have your kosher piece of chicken, and by accident this chicken fell into somebody's place. In a plate, hopefully it's not splash everybody, right? And so technically, since it is a bowl, since it is a secondary vessel, right? So you can take this chicken, go wash. Of course, you wash out. Of course, you have to remove the residue. I mean, it's not going away by itself. That's obvious, right? Of course, it did not penetrate inside of the chicken, right? But at least on the surface for sure. That's why, if possible to wash, that's what you do. With liquids, it's different story, but it's a very good example. Other poskim disagree, and they maintain that Kli Sheini can induce the absorption of the taste of the food. Okay, thus, if, for example, a dairy spoon is put into the bowl of hot chicken soup, so here we go. According to the first opinion, it must merely be washed, while according to the second opinion, it must be kosher. A Rav must be consulted. Okay, so it's very, very interesting. So that's one opinion says if in secondary vessel it's not going to cook, and the second opinion said no, in secondary vessel it's going to cook. Again, if the temperature in yatzaladas bo. And just to draw the parallel, that's what we do on Shabbos, right? How do we make a coffee in Shabbos? So according to the first opinion that we just mentioned, that in second vessel is not going to cook. So technically, you can put your sugar, right, sugar and coffee into your cup and pour. No, you cannot pour. No, that's a different story. Sorry, it's not a good example. So we cannot pour directly from water urn. Why is that? Because it is when you pour from the primary vessel, it's like a primary vessel, so it's not going to work. That's why we make a coffee always in a third cup, in a second cup. So water heater, right? You put water in that cup, and then you pour in another cup. For sure, In the third cup, in the third vessel, nobody said it's cooking, unless there is special foods. There are like 4 special foods. Okay, that is going to cook into even in a tertiary vessel if it's temperature Yatzal Adesbo. So one more time, just so remember 2 opinions. First opinion said it's not going to cook in a secondary vessel. That's why if you have the meat soup, right, chicken soup. Your mother-in-law came to visit you, right? She took the plate while you were busy with the kids, right? She took not the plate, the spoon, right, from wrong drawer, even though it says daily who reads, and she tried to eat. So according to the first opinion, you just have to wash it, no problem, and you don't have to kosher it. But according to the second opinion, no, they say no. The foods, everything, if it's above Yatzal Etzbo, for sure is going to cook. So according to this opinion, you have to kosher this spoon, right? How do you kosher? You put it in a hot water, in the boiling water, and then you put it in the mikveh and dip in the mikveh, and you can use it, no problem. Okay, of course, but before that, you have to like wash it like with regular water, like with the soap water, and you have to let it dry for 24 hours, right? Do not touch for 24 hours, and then you can kosher it. That's the procedure. Continue. Number 2. I understand it's a lot of technical material, but please buy this book so you can go over the same information. Because it's if you hear it is for the first time, it's like you're going to fall asleep in 37 seconds. Okay, go ahead. Question?
Yes, I have a question. So I'm sorry. So you said, 1 second. So you said to kosher utensil, you dip it in boiling water and then put it in a mikveh. Is that for utensils that, when you say put in a mikveh, is that for utensils that were not previously put in the mikveh? Or
no, they were cool. No. It says when you kosher utensils, so this utensil becomes non-kosher. For example, I give you an example. So we bought on eBay some metal things like spoons, like silver spoons, right? Certain silver spoons, they sell it very cheap. We bought it many years ago, but it was very like a laughable price, basically, right? It was auctions, whatever. Paid like, I don't know, like $10 to $15 like for a silver spoon. You understand? So we kosher them. Of course, we assume they were used for a non-kosher food. And we put it in the mikveh. So here is it also. It's not kosher. For you, it's not kosher.
Right. So let's say, but you put it in a mikveh because you assume that they were never put in the mikveh?
No. I even though they were put in the mikveh, it doesn't matter. That's a last step of purification.
I got it. Okay.
It's actually this step. Actually, it's directly from the Torah. So when we went in the war, I think in Midian or somewhere, like we're going to read it soon in a weekly portion, and Moshe said whatever silver, gold utensils. So put it through fire. If it was you used for frying, put it through fire. If it's for boiling, put it into water and dip into the living waters. It's like paraphrasing what it says there. So it's always when you kosher, you have to like a last step of purification. You put it in the water, in the mikveh. Okay.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we continue? Okay, no problem. So if you have any questions, please ask, because it's very difficult subject. I think if you never learn it, if you learn it and you're going over just like acquire additional information, so it's not that bad. But first time, I would say it's very, very hard. I think that's my personal opinion. So if you have questions, you confused, there is no problem. Just ask questions. Okay. I just want to read one quick. Note, so it was number 9. The opinion of some poskim, even if kli sheini, the kli shlishi, third vessel, into which liquid from the kli sheini is poured, is equal to status to kli sheini. Is a liquid yatzal adasbo Others disagree. Okay, this the whole list. So technically. So here's the thing that I'm going to tell. That's a big difference between Ashkenazi custom or approach and Sephardi custom. So according to most of the Sephardi custom, so they actually do cook, these tea bags, right? So they put tea bags in a third cup, not the second, not in the first, in the second cup, and they pour water from the second cup, and there is no problem. Ashkenazi people usually don't do it. Some do. There are opinions that you can do it, but mostly we go by the stricter opinion, and we say that this tea leaves is one of the exceptions. It is exception, right? That it's if the water inside, like in the cup, if it's a second, third cup, or fifth cup, 10th cup, if it's above Yatzel Adasbo, since these leaves, especially in tea bags, that's how they make it. So they're readily cooked. If they're going to cook. So basically we never ever use a tea bags on Shabbos. So what do? You just prepare before Shabbos, like tea essence, right? And like in olden days, and that's it. In olden days, before we had the sleeves, because the tea bags, right? So we lived so many years before the tea bags, so that's what we used to do. Okay, continue. Number 2, the status of Iruy, a ladle, Dvar Gush, and Dvar Harif. Okay, so let's see what are this. So ladle, we understand. So now we're going to see, and it's actually also applies to Shabbos also, like this ladle, right? That you take this soup. If you pour the soup from like if it's a broth, right? And you're lazy or you don't have this ladle, you can pour that directly from the pot into your plate, into your bowl. There is no problem, right? But if you use ladle, so the question is, this ladle, is it counted as secondary vessel, and this bowl is a tertiary or not? So that's the question. So meaning that like every vessel is going to cool down the liquid, even though when you pour it's Yatzel Adasbo, but very fast it's going to be cooled down. Okay, so let's see. The following situation are less hot than Kli Rishon. Situations are less hot than Kli Rishon, but hotter than Kli Sheini. Okay, right. So less hot than Kli Rishon, meaning the pot where the soup was cooked, but hotter than Kli Sheini, but hotter than our bowl, right? And therefore the status is questionable. So this ladle is questionable. So it says Iruy Kli Rishon. So what does it mean? Liquid poured from the original cooking pot is called Iruy Kli Rishon. Paskim disagree as to whether and to what degree Iruy Kli Rishon can induce absorption of the taste into the food, into which it is poured. We normally assume that the taste would be absorbed into the thinnest removable surface of the food. Okay, so let's try to understand what it says here before we continue to practical application. So the question is, if I'm going to pour from my original pot into the bowl, right? Is it going to be like pour on something? Is it going to cook or not? Is it going to be like let's say it has a piece of cheese in this bowl, right? So if I'm going to pour from my original pot, is it going to mix with the cheese to induce the taste? Yes or no, right? So according to the strict opinion, they say that when you pour from one utensil to another, it's like it's touching, this cheese is touching the first utensil. It's going to cook for sure, right? But according to a second opinion, they say no, it is actually in the second utensil. But the bottom line, we always, as we said many times, we try to go by a stricter opinion. So if you pour something right? It's like a first utensil. That's why I first started talking, but then I realized that we don't do that. But I thought maybe technically, even theoretically, theoretically, if you go by the lenient opinion, that's what you can do. Yes, you can put your sugar and then coffee, instant coffee, into a cup and pour the water into that cup. According to the lenient opinion, there is no problem. But according to stricter opinion, no, it's going to be cooked. So we actually do in a tertiary vessel, even though the temperature is above Yatzalat as well. Because we say normally foods, especially coffee, was already cooked. Instant coffee was cooked before. Sugar was cooked before, so there is nothing to cook. So as I said, tea is one of the exceptions. Okay. So that's the definition, Iruy Kli Rishon. Practical application. If hot Yatzalat as bone milk, okay, is poured over cold meat, it's very interesting, right? Hot Yatzalat as bone milk poured over the cold meat, or hot gravy over the cold cheese, or either of these overpowering food, the taste is absorbed into at least the thinnest surface of the food, right? At least like basically, what does it mean? Maybe you have to cut the top part if possible. The Rav must be consulted. So let's read one more time and I'm going to explain. If Yatzalat is bo, so Yatzalat is bo meaning that your hand recoils. Milk poured over the cold meat. So meat is cold. This milk is hot. So we applying this law of Iruy Kli Rishon. Iruy Kli Rishon, you pour it from initial vessel, right? Pour it over the milk, or hot gravy, so opposite, over the cheese, okay? Or either of these over the powdered food, so meaning if powdered food became meat or dairy, right? The taste is absorbed into the tiniest surface of the food. So the tiniest surface of the food, if you pour like some on the pasta, what exactly are you going to do, right? So because of the absorption, that's it. It became meat. But if it's meat was actually cold meat, so maybe you can cut, wash of course, and cut off the tiniest layer, and then you will be able to eat. So that's what you need. That's why you need to present all these things to Rabbi, and he's going to decide what to do. That's one of the solutions. Okay. Okay, so next, the practical example. Hot water emerged from the spout in a kitchen sink. Is considered Iruy Mikli Rishon. It's very interesting, and thus, if hot water pours over the meat that has been placed in a dairy dish, Rav must be consulted. How is it possible? Let me try to understand. So it was cold meat, let's say, that is put in a cold dairy pot, right? But you pour now this hot water. So you open a tub, right, in your kitchen tub, and sink, right, in the sink, and hot water. So this hot water is from Kli Rishon. So basically, in some sense, it is actually this faucet, right? It's actually, of course, in the double quotes, is a pot in which the water was cooked, right? It's very interesting, and we actually use this sometimes when needed. In what case? When we need to wash our hands and we don't have a cup with two handles, or any cup for that matter, right? So we can open the faucet one time, two times, right, to wash the hands. If somebody, if you after the restaurant, you can open and close, open on one hand, on another hand, and in alternative motives, right? Why? Because it is Kli Rishon. That's original vessel. Its faucet is original vessel. The whole system is original vessel. It's very interesting. So in this case, they say talk to your Rav. But I say first of all have two separate like a set of parts that not even resemble to one another. So for example, as I said, like we have for meat we have red. How can you go wrong with red? That's for meat. For parve we have stainless. And for dairy, we have a different color. I mean, we don't use much, but we still have. You understand? So we do like today. It's not expensive. When we were buying, it was like you want a red parts. It was like I don't know, like 3 times more than regular. Today is it's sometimes it's even cheaper. Okay, continue. So it was first case is when you pour. So like first scenario when you pour from original utensil into secondary vessel. So it is considered according to stricter opinion it's like a first vessel. According to the lenient opinion it's like a secondary vessel. Okay. So continue. A ladle. So ladle. Poskim disagree as to whether ladle used to transfer from kli Rishon to kli Sheini. So kli Rishon is the original part. Kli Sheini is our bowl, right? Is considered kli Rishon or kli Sheini, right? So it's very interesting question. So when I use my ladle, so is it considered like the first vessel, right? Because I submerge into part of the soup, or it's considered like a secondary vessel, like I pour into secondary vessel? That's very interesting question. And then I'm going to say what we do on Shabbos, right? If one removes chicken soup from hot pot with ladle and some milk falls into ladle, okay, of course we're talking like hypothetical, but okay, some hot milk falls into ladle, or the hot soup is poured over the cheese, okay, meaning from this ladle, right? It is questionable if the soup in the ladle retains the status of food in a kli Rishon. Okay, the Rav must be consulted. So let's read one more time and we're going to explain. If one removes chicken soup with a ladle from a hot pot with a ladle, okay, and some milk falls into the ladle. So basically the milk is in a secondary vessel, and as you see, if we go by this leniency, that leniency, technically maybe it's no problem. You just have to wash the ladle, right? Or the hot soup is poured over the cheese, right? Again from this ladle, so they don't get confused. So maybe if we consider ladle is a secondary vessel, so if you pour from secondary in like on this cheese, so in the tertiary vessel, maybe there is no problem whatsoever, as we said on the previous page. It is questionable if the soup in the ladle retains the status of the food of kli Rishon, right? So we don't know if it's kli Rishon, meaning the ladle is considered to be like the original pot of the soup, or ladle is considered to be like a bowl, right? A Rav must be consulted. Okay, before we go consult the Rav, we have to see what is the difference of the opinion. And our rabbis say, we need to be practical, right? So our rabbis explain, so if we have to go in the middle of the road, right? What is middle of the road? If this ladle was metal, right, and it was submerged into the soup for a long time, right? For sure, it would become like a primary vessel, right? So for sure, right? Because it will get very hot. But if it's a plastic, right? Today many things are made from plastic, and like you would only pour to one plate and let it rest, for example, even for a few seconds. So the plastic loses the heat very fast. You understand? So in this case, it's going to be secondary vessel. So it depends how often you use this ladle. So that's a practical application. Okay, next one. Any questions on what we said before I continue? So we did so far two cases. One is pouring from original vessel, and second use a ladle as a medium. No questions? Okay, continue. The third one is dvar gush. In the opinion of some poskim, dvar gush, solid foods retain the status of kli rishon even when they are removed from the kli rishon in which it was cooked and placed onto another dish. This is because, unlike liquids, solid foods is not cooled by the walls of the dish. Okay, so let's try to understand before we continue, right? So we say it's when you have a very very hot liquid. So how can you cool down? Right, you pour it to 1 cup, right? From 1 cup to another cup to the third cup and back, and in 15 seconds you already cooled this liquid a lot. Why? Because the walls of the utensil in the next cup, right? Even though you just pour like 10 seconds ago, they already cooled down. So next time you pour it into the same cup, they already much colder. So the walls of the utensil will cool down the liquids, but not so much with heat, with a solid food. So if you have a piece of meat and you remove from a primary utensil, let's say you took it with a fork or something, like a steak, right? You put it into your plate, and then but the heat in the inside of the steak is a lot, right? So it's very hot inside. So, and it's going to stay, because it's so solid, it's going to stay hot for a very long time. And that's why it has this potency to cook much longer than liquids. Liquids, they would cool down, but these solid foods, not so much. Even that doesn't matter how many utensils you're going to switch, the walls are not going to cook inside of the steak very fast. That's the thing. I'm not sure why he's not explaining deep, but that's what it is. Okay, continue. The dairy knife. The dairy knife used to cut piece of hot meat on a plate presents a more serious question than the dairy utensils placed on the hot bowl of the chicken soup. The meat is dvar gvush and may retain the status of kli rishon even then placed onto the kli Sheini. A knife may need to be koshered. Okay, so let's look at this example one more time, and we're going to explain. So it says one more time. So before that, we said we have this soup, right? Soup in a bowl. So if you took wrong, like meat soup, like chicken soup, and you took a dairy spoon, that's we said it's easy. So you just go wash and that's it. Okay. Right, or according to first opinion, according to second opinion, if it's above yatsa ledesbo, no, you have to actually kosher. But if we take into consideration a ladle, and we say ladle is a secondary vessel and your soup is a tertiary vessel, so even though you put, according to both opinions, you put this cold dairy food, cold dairy spoon into them, so you just wash it and that's it. Okay, so in the third vessel, so this status of the ladle is very important. So Rabbi is going to ask you all of the crazy questions. You say, Rabbi, you know what? Let me throw this, pour the soup out. I don't need it. That's too much. But actually, that's he would need to figure out if it's possible to grant you any leniency. Because if you came to us, meaning that you need leniency, right? Or because according to all of the opinions, if you decided to go stricter and you kosher the spoon, there is no problem whatsoever. Okay, so continue. So actually, one more time. But knife is different. Why knife is different? So soup is a liquid. That's not a problem. But with the salads, when you cut this piece of steak, let's say inside, so inside it's very hot. So that's our topic. The dairy knife used to cut piece of meat, hot meat, right, on a plate presents a more serious question than dairy utensil placed into the hot bowl of chicken soup. Okay, we just explained. The meat is dvar gush, meaning that it has a potency to cook, and inside, because of inside heat, and may retain the status of kli rishon, right? Kli rishon meaning this part in what it was cooked, even when placed in a kli Sheini. It's like even in a second plate, in in a plate is still the status. Even the plate is 2, right? After the frying pan, let's say from frying pan you will put it into the plate. So it's second vessel, right? But according to this concept of Devar Gush, it's actually first vessel because this meat is so hot. Okay, so one more time, last sentence, and we continue. The meat is Dvar Gush, as we explained, and may retain status of Kli Rishon, as we just said, even when placed in a Kli Sheini, second vessel, as we just explained. The knife may need to be kosher. I would say kosher for sure. Okay, continue. D. Dvar Harif. So what is Dvar Harif? Is a sharp food. That's a different story. That falls into Kli Sheini. So what is sharp food? May be governed by most stringent rules. They say a Rav must be consulted in any of these cases. So let's see. Sharp foods like that you have onions that, for example, over sharp foods, or garlic that was cooked in with the meat, or with do we cook the garlic with the dairy? I don't think so. Maybe I don't know, right? But mostly with meat, if it has this potency to transmit the taste. Okay, so that's fourth case. So continue. Relevant information when asking Shaila. So Shaila is a question to the Rabbi. Okay. Whenever hot meat and dairy comes, so now he's teaching us how to ask the question. So even to ask the question, to ask a good question, you have to be very, very, very knowledgeable. So let's see. The relevant information asking Shaila. Whenever hot meat and dairy come into contact with each other, hot meat touches the dairy utensil, so that doesn't matter, right? So we're talking about transmission of the taste, whether from one substance to another, from meat to dairy, right, or from dairy to meat, or from either one of them into para food, or to utensil, right? Okay. Or to utensil, a Rav must be consulted. Okay. Continue. Rav will need to know the following: the degree of heat involved and whether the hot food was in an original utensil. So that's number one, right? Where was it? In an original utensil that it was cooked in, right? So that's what we call Kli Rishon. We explained. So in Kli Rishon, everything is going to cook, as we said. If it's above Yad Saledas Bo, very important. And next one, if meat or dairy utensils are involved. So first we're talking about the foods. Then second, meat or dairy utensils are involved. He will need to know whether they were used for hot meat or dairy in the previous 24 hours. So we call it Ben Yama, right? So what does it mean? So if we need to apply for leniency, after 24 hours, so even though it was taste in there, right, like it absorbed the taste, even like if we did not wash the utensil, right? So did not wash the utensil, not a good idea. So let's say you wash the utensil, you rinse it, and it stood more than 24 hours. Whatever was in a pot, in the walls of the pot, most likely this food, like the taste is spoiled, right? It's spoiled. We don't say it's not there. It is spoiled. It's no longer considered. If let's say it was a meat pot, it's this taste that absorbed in the walls of the pot is not considered to be meat. It sounds like garbage, basically. Okay. Same with the dairy. So that's second question that he's going to ask. Third question he's going to ask: if dishes were washed together, that's another issue, right? As we said, so if the problem could be even with the dirty dishes, right? Why? Because if you wash the dishes with the hot water, right? Hot water, and we said that if it's yad salad asbo, for sure it's going to transmit taste from one plate into the other, right? So one more time, if dishes were washed together, he will inquire about the degree of heat of water, whether the dishes were directly under the spout, right, or whether the soap was used. So that's very important also. So because soap kills the taste. Okay, one should clarify all of the factors before speaking Torah. But how would you remember the temperature? Like I don't know, like approximately. You have to remember. You just took it from the fire. That's obvious. If it was standing for 15 minutes with a lid on top of it, that's also very important, right? So I think we can stop here because that's continues on and on. Any questions on what we said or any topic? We can do any topics also. No questions? Okay, no problem. So then we stop here. And last time, no questions? Okay, last chance. No problem. So we stop here, and I wish everybody good Shabbos. And until Monday, Beezrat HaShem, we're going to continue with our regular schedule. Thank you very much, and good night.
Good Shabbos, good night.
Shabbos, good night.